Behind the stained glass windows, beyond the echo of Sunday sermons, a secret festered in silence, poisoning the heart of a family destined for greatness. A father worshipped by thousands, a son groomed to inherit the ministry, a wife adored, celebrated, trusted without question, and a mother, watching, waiting, silently gathering the shards of betrayal until they were sharp enough to cut. For years, they lived behind masks, preaching, smiling, praying, pretending, all while a betrayal so unspeakable grew in the shadows. Until one night, at a family table meant for love and unity, the truth tore through the facade in a rain of bullets, blood, and shattered faith. What kind of secret could be so devastating, so monstrous, that it would drive a woman to murder her own husband, her children, and tear down everything they had built? What hidden betrayal was so corrosive? It dismantled a family, destroyed a church, and turned a legacy of faith into a battlefield of blood. Tonight, we reveal the chilling truth of how love became a weapon, how trust became a trap, and how darkness can live even in the brightest sanctuaries. Welcome to Crime Vault, where we unlock the darkest secrets behind the world's most haunting true crime stories. If you crave the truth buried beneath betrayal and blood, if you seek the stories others are too afraid to tell, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell icon because what you're about to hear will change the way you see trust forever. Now, let's step inside the tragedy that silenced a family and shook a church to its very core. In a quiet southern town where faith wasn't just preached, it was lived, one family stood above the rest. At the head of it all stood Bishop Samuel Carter, a man admired by thousands, a father, a shepherd, a founder. His voice filled pulpits, his prayers blessed generations. To the world he was untouchable, a man of God whose footsteps few dared to follow. Brief pause, voice darkened slightly. He was the cornerstone of New Light Ministries, but behind every cornerstone there are cracks no one dares to see. His son, Pastor David Carter, was bright, charismatic, and full of promise, groomed from childhood to inherit his father Sip's sacred mantle. From the moment he could walk, David was molded, polished, prepared to carry the flame Samuel Carter had lit decades before. Sermon by sermon, prayer by prayer, David grew into the golden boy of New Light Ministries, beloved by the congregation and burdened by their expectations. And then there was Rachel. Rachel Carter, young, beautiful, and full of life, the perfect partner for David Seth's shining future. She was embraced by the congregation with open arms, praised for her grace, her beauty, her seeming purity. To the world, they were the perfect couple, destined to lead a new generation of faith. But sometimes, the perfect bride carries the deepest secrets. Their wedding day was a grand celebration. New Light Ministries overflowed with joy, laughter, tears of hope, whispered blessings. Bishop Samuel Carter laid hands on the young couple, blessing their union before God and man. Rachel smiled through her veil. David beamed with pride, and the congregation wept tears of joy. But even as vows were exchanged, as the first kiss was shared, betrayal was already being born. Behind the wide smiles, behind the hymns and prayers, dark, hungry eyes were already watching. Boundaries were being crossed. Lines were being blurred, and the foundation they stood on, the foundation of trust, faith, and family, had already begun to crack. But there was one person who saw what others could not, one person whose eyes were sharpened by years of quiet observation and silent prayers. First Lady Evelyn Carter, wife of Bishop Samuel Carter and matriarch of New Light Ministries, felt the chill long before anyone else. She was the backbone of the ministry, the silent strength behind the pulpit, and the one woman who would not be fooled by sweet smiles and perfect Sunday suits. Evelyn Carter watched, listened, and gathered the shards of truth others were too blind to see. The father who blessed them, the wife who pledged her heart, the son who trusted them both, all hurtling toward a betrayal so profound it would leave a legacy in ashes and a congregation gasping in disbelief. Behind the polished smiles and Sunday sermons, something unholy had begun to take root. Bishop Samuel Carter, the spiritual father of thousands, crossed a line so dark it shattered the very faith he preached. In the shadows of New Light Ministries, he began an affair with Rachel Carter, his own son's wife. What started as stolen glances turned into whispered meetings, and then into sins too heavy to confess. While Pastor David Carter preached salvation to the world, his own home was becoming a house of betrayal. The affair was hidden behind layers of tradition, respect, and power. Rachel played her role flawlessly, the dutiful pastor-sit's wife, while secretly entangled with the very man who had once blessed her union. Years passed. Seasons changed. The church grew. And then, a child was born. Pastor David Carter held the newborn in his arms, tears of joy streaming down his face. He named him Samuel Jr., honoring his father, trusting his legacy. He believed the boy was his own flesh and blood, never knowing he was cradling the product of unspeakable betrayal. In the pews, the faithful sang praises. In the pulpit, sermons thundered. And in the shadows, the truth waited, hidden in plain sight. But there was one heart that could not be fooled, one soul that felt the tremors before the quake. First Lady Evelyn Carter, wife to the bishop, mother to the pastor, sensed the darkness lurking within her family. At first, it was just a whisper in her spirit. A glance too long, a touch that lingered, a laugh shared behind closed doors. The signs were subtle, but a mother's heart sees what the eyes refuse to believe. Evelyn didn't set rush to accuse. She didn't set confront with wild anger. Instead, she became a silent witness. She began collecting the pieces of a puzzle no one else dared to see, letters hidden away in forgotten drawers, photographs taken when they thought no one was watching, text messages too intimate to explain, testimonies whispered from trusted sources who had seen too much. Every discovery stabbed deeper than the last, but Evelyn knew she couldn't set act on feeling alone. She needed undeniable proof, not just for her own sake, but for the soul of her son and the survival of the church they had built with their lives. Her faith waged war against her heartbreak. Should she remain silent and protect the family name, or expose the rot at its core and risk destroying everything they had built? The weight of truth was crushing, and soon the decision she made would lead to a confrontation no one would survive. By now, Pastor David Carter had stepped fully into his father's shoes. The pulpit was his. The future of New Light Ministries rested squarely on his shoulders. He preached with passion, led with conviction, and loved his young family with a devotion few could match. But it was all built on a lie he had no idea he was living. The sermons grew louder. The crowds grew larger. The boy he called his son grew taller, calling him Daddy with innocent eyes. And all the while, First Lady Evelyn Carter held the devastating truth inside her heart like a ticking bomb, until the day she could no longer stay silent. One evening inside the Carter family home, Evelyn called David into the study. The walls were lined with pictures of baptisms, family portraits, and smiling church members, testaments to a life of faith. And then, Evelyn opened the folder she had kept hidden for years. Piece by piece, she laid out the evidence before him. The letters, the photographs, the text messages, the testimonies. Each item, a dagger to the heart. She spoke carefully, her voice breaking under the weight of every word. The affair between Bishop Samuel Carter and Rachel Carter. The lies whispered behind closed doors. The true bloodline of the boy David had cradled, baptized, and called his own. David sat frozen, the walls of his world collapsing around him. Every sermon, every prayer, every family moment, now tainted. His wife's betrayal, his father's moral collapse, his son, not his son at all. The weight was unbearable. Rage, grief, and disbelief battled for dominance inside him. Questions screamed in his mind. How could this happen? How could they do this to him? How long had everyone known? The room spun. His heart pounded. His soul cried out for answers that would never bring peace. In that moment, David Carter, the beloved pastor, the faithful son, the devoted father, shattered. The mask of strength was ripped away, and the fury that followed would leave a trail of devastation no one could escape. In the Carter family, Sunday dinners were sacred. A time for prayers, laughter, updates on the ministry, a time for unity. But this dinner would be the last. David Carter called the family together, Rachel, their children, and his mother, First Lady Evelyn Carter. He sat across from his wife, the folder of evidence tucked beneath his arm. He had one goal: to confront the betrayal, to demand the truth, to reclaim what little dignity he still had left. But Rachel Carter had her own plan. As she looked around the table, she saw her carefully crafted world crumbling. The husband who had adored her, now filled with rage. The mother-in-law who had exposed her, now demanding justice. The innocent children sitting wide-eyed, sensing the storm without understanding it. And something inside Rachel snapped. In a blind surge of panic, rage, and desperation, Rachel Carter reached into her purse and pulled out a gun. Before anyone could react, she fired. David Carter struck down first. Her husband. Her once trusting love. First Lady Evelyn Carter, the woman who had dared to uncover the truth, fell next. Then she turned the weapon toward the children. The very lives she had once rocked to sleep, she now saw as loose ends to be tied up. Chaos erupted. Screams filled the air. The unthinkable was unfolding in the home once filled with prayer. Neighbors later said they heard the gunshots, but no one could have imagined the nightmare that lay behind the Carter family's doors. In less than 5 minutes, a legacy built over generations was drowned in blood, trust shattered forever. The news traveled faster than wildfire. In pews and prayer circles across town, the unthinkable began to sink in. New Light Ministries, once a beacon of hope, now stood leaderless, fatherless, broken. The faithful followers who had sung hymns of unity now wept tears of betrayal. Rachel Carter was arrested at the scene, hands bloodied, face vacant. The courts would later hear the full horror, the affair, the lies, the rage, the desperate violence. The community watched as the woman they once called First Lady in Waiting was led away in shackles. The Carter name, once spoken with reverence, now became a cautionary tale whispered in hushed tones. The innocent boy caught between a stolen lineage and a shattered legacy would grow up haunted by questions he never asked to be born into. In the end, it was not hatred that destroyed the Carters. It was misplaced trust. Trust weaponized. Trust turned into betrayal. Trust turned into death. In the end, it wasn't the enemies from the outside who destroyed the Carter family. It was betrayal from within. The hands that blessed were the hands that broke. The voices that preached truth were the voices that whispered lies, and the ones trusted the most were the ones who left the deepest scars. Sometimes, the deadliest secrets aren't hidden in darkness. They're hidden in the light, among those we trust the most. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. Thank you for walking with us through this tragic story of faith, betrayal, and the cost of hidden truths. If you believe in bringing hidden stories to light, if you believe in truth, no matter how painful, join us here at Crime Vault. Subscribe now, and never look away from the stories that demand to be told.